It was just an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at a high-end downtown bank. Busy tellers, humming computers, and a long line of customers waiting to be served. Then she walked in. A young black girl, no older than 14, stepped through those glass doors, holding a white envelope tightly in her hand. Her eyes scanned the room, calm and confident. She wasn't there to cause trouble. She was just there to deposit a check. But in less than 5 minutes, she'd be publicly humiliated, accused of something she didn't do, and treated like she didn't belong. The clerk thought she was just a kid trying to pull a scam. What the clerk didn't know was who the girl's mother was. And by the time she found out, it was already too late. Her name was Maya, 14 years old, bright eyes, hair in neat braids, a calm composure far beyond her years. She wore a school uniform proudly, a navy blazer, polished shoes, and a gold-accented backpack that swayed slightly as she walked. In her hand was an envelope, creased at the edges from how tightly she'd been holding it since leaving school. Inside was a check, a very real, very legitimate check. $2,000. That money wasn't a gift. It wasn't an allowance. It wasn't from her parents. Maya had earned it. She just won first place in a regional youth coding competition, beating out high school seniors and even a few college freshmen. The judges had been stunned by her project, a mobile app designed to help low-income families track local food bank inventory in real time. Tech companies were already calling her school to ask about her. But Maya wasn't thinking about that right now. She wasn't looking for recognition or praise. She was simply on a mission. Her mother had always taught her, take care of your business, even if the world thinks you're too young to have any. So here she was, at the bank her family had been using for over a decade, standing patiently in line like any adult would. Around her, shooter professionals tapped impatiently on their phones. A few glanced at her but looked away. She was quiet, respectful, the kind of kid who always said please and thank you. When her turn came, she stepped forward. The teller's name tag read Susan. Mid-50s, cold smile, pearl earrings. Her demeanor changed the second she looked up and saw Maya. Not curiosity, not friendliness, just suspicion. Susan leaned forward slowly, her voice clipped. Can I help you? Maya nodded politely and placed the envelope on the counter. Yes. I'd like to deposit this check into my account. Susan stared at her, then at the envelope, then back at her. She didn't reach for the envelope. She didn't type anything into the computer. Instead, she narrowed her eyes. Whose check is this? Maya, still calm, answered. It's mine. I won a scholarship prize for a coding competition. Silence. Then a scoff. A coding competition. Susan finally opened the envelope, pulling the check out as though it might bite her. Her eyes scanned the amount, then the name, then back at Maya. You expect me to believe this? The tone was sharp now, loud enough for the man in line behind Maya to look up from his phone. You sure you didn't find this somewhere? Susan asked, her voice suddenly stern. Maybe in someone else's mailbox. The room fell silent. Maya's confidence faltered for a brief second. Not because she was ashamed, but because she had been here before. Different place, different face, but the same question. Why do you have what we don't think you should? But Maya didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply said, if you have a problem, I can call my mother. Susan crossed her arms and smirked. Sure, let's do that. I'd love to hear what Mommy has to say about all this. What Susan didn't know was that Mommy was about to walk through those glass doors, and everything was about to change. The lobby of the bank suddenly felt colder. Maya stood in front of the counter, her small hands resting gently on the edge, while Susan the teller leaned back in her chair with folded arms and a smirk that said everything she wouldn't say out loud. The check, still sitting between them, was now crumpled slightly at one corner, as if it had somehow lost its value just because of who was holding it. The man behind Maya shifted uncomfortably. A woman a few steps overturned her head slowly to listen. The hush that filled the lobby wasn't just awkward, it was thick with disbelief. But Susan didn't care. In fact, she doubled down. I don't know where you got this check, young lady, she said, her voice a little louder now. But walking in here alone, with something like this, it doesn't look right. Maya blinked. She was taught to always be respectful, even when others weren't. But she could feel something knotting in her chest. "It's in my name," she said quietly, pointing to the printed line on the check. "You can look it up." "Oh, I can see the name," Susan snapped. "But I'm not going to deposit this until someone verifies where it came from. You kids think you're clever, trying to pass things off like this." "Kids!" Maya repeated, confused. "I'm not trying to pass anything off. I want a tech grant. It's legitimate." That word, legitimate, seemed to trigger Susan. "I don't have time for stories," she said, standing now as if to tower over Maya. "You're wasting my time and everyone else's. Come back when you have an adult with you." There it was, the assumption that no matter how articulate Maya was, no matter how neat her appearance, no matter the legitimacy of the check or the account, it wasn't enough. Not when she looked like this. Not when she was young, black, and alone. "But I'm the account holder," Maya said, her voice trembling slightly now, not from fear, but from a deep and growing frustration. "You can check my ID. You'll see my name is on both." "We'll see about that," Susan huffed, snatching the check and holding it between two fingers like it was something toxic. She turned to her computer and began typing, slowly, deliberately, with long pauses between each key, as if to prolong the discomfort. "You better hope this isn't flagged," she muttered under her breath. Maya stood her ground. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her blazer, but she held her head high. She could feel eyes on her now, not just Susan's, but the other customers. Some looked away in discomfort. Others whispered quietly. But no one said anything. That silence, the silence of bystanders, echoed louder than Susan's voice. Finally, Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Calmly, she began to dial. Susan rolled her eyes. "Go ahead. Call whoever you want. I'm just doing my job." Doing her job.
But what Susan didn't realize was that this job she was so proud of, she was just a few minutes away from losing it. Outside, the parking lot buzzed with the sound of engines and afternoon traffic. A sleek black Range Rover had just pulled in, and Maya's mother, Danielle Roberts, had just stepped out. Impeccably dressed. Fierce. Controlled. A woman who had been underestimated her entire life, until she built a business empire and became one of the most respected CEOs in the city. And she wasn't here to argue. She was here to end this. The doors to the bank whooshed open with a quiet hiss of compressed air. And in walked Danielle Roberts. Tall. Poised. Wearing a tailored black suit with a silk blouse and heels that clicked against the marble floor like punctuation marks. Her presence alone shifted the room. Conversations paused. Heads turned. She wasn't just Maya's mother. She was the founder and CEO of Roberts Strategic Technologies, a rising star in the corporate world, with government contracts, Fortune 500 clients, and her company's logo etched onto the same bank's quarterly investor reports. And this was her bank too. Literally. Her firm had deposited millions through this institution. The branch manager knew her. The regional director had shaken her hand at luncheons. But right now, Danielle wasn't here as a CEO. She was here as a mother. She locked eyes with Maya across the room. And in that moment, Maya's posture changed. Her shoulders straightened. The weight of humiliation began to lift, not because someone had swooped in to save her, but because truth had just entered the room. Danielle walked up to the counter with slow, deliberate steps. Susan glanced up, unbothered at first, until she saw the fire in Danielle's eyes. "Can I help you?" Susan asked, her voice wobbling slightly. Danielle didn't answer her. She turned to Maya. "You okay, baby?" Maya nodded. "She said my check might be fake," Maya said softly. "She told me to come back with an adult." Danielle's expression didn't change. Her voice remained calm. But the silence between each word carried weight. "This is the same branch," Danielle began, "where I've deposited payroll for over 70 employees every 2 weeks for the last 4 years." She turned now to Susan, whose smile had fully vanished. "You have access to that history, don't you?" Susan blinked. Yes, of course, I." "Then you also know the name Danielle Roberts." That's me. CEO of Robert Strategic Technologies. My company pays for this building's digital security suite. My checks built this floor. The manager, Mr. Langston, had been watching from a distance, but now rushed over, his face pale and sweaty. Ms. Roberts. I wasn't aware there was a situation. Please, let's take this to my office. Danielle held up one hand, stopping him mid-sentence. No. We're going to address this right here. Because this didn't happen behind closed doors. This happened right here, where customers could see it. Where my daughter was treated like a criminal for simply walking in and doing what she was taught to do, handle her business. The entire bank had gone quiet. Phones stopped ringing. Fingers froze over keyboards. Your employee, Danielle said firmly, looked at my daughter and assumed she didn't belong here. Not because of her behavior. Not because of anything she said. But because of her skin. Her age. Her confidence. She paused. Let it sink in. Then, she turned to Maya. You did nothing wrong. Don't ever let anyone treat you like you don't belong in spaces you've earned your way into. Maya's eyes welled, but she stood strong. Taller now. The check was finally processed, this time by the branch manager himself. No delays. No questions. But the damage was already done. And Susan knew it. She quietly stepped away from the counter as the whispers around her grew louder. By the time Danielle and Maya walked out of the bank that afternoon, the air felt different. Not because everything was fixed, but because something had been exposed. The truth had been dragged into the light. And some truths are too loud to ignore. Later that evening, a statement appeared on the bank's social media page. Polished. Apologetic. Hollow. We do not tolerate discrimination of any kind at our financial institutions. We are aware of the incident that occurred at our downtown branch and are conducting a full investigation. But behind the scenes, there was no investigation needed. The security footage said it all. By the end of the week, Susan's desk was cleared. Her name badge removed. Her employment terminated, not for a single mistake, but for the pattern her past behavior had revealed once someone finally looked. Meanwhile, Maya. Her story had quietly begun to circulate online, shared by bank employees, by witnesses, and by a few journalists who caught wind of it. Within days, she was invited to speak at a youth tech summit. Then came the scholarship offers. The mentorship invitations. Not because of what happened at the bank, but because she never let that moment define her. As for Danielle, she declined interviews. She didn't need to tell the world who she was. She'd already done that, in how she raised her daughter. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was about recognition. About how the smallest act of disrespect can be seen by the world, and how the quiet strength of a young black girl and her mother turned shame into power. So the next time someone walks into a room, confident, proud, and prepared, remember Maya. She wasn't lucky that her mother was a CEO. The world was lucky that she had a mother who showed up. And a daughter who never backed down.